It was late June, in Bristol, England, more than half a century ago, when 5-year-old Louisa Dunne went to bed in her modest home on Britannia Road, Easton, a quiet neighborhood where the unexpected still felt unlikely. She had lived through 2 world wars, outlived her husbands, seen her daughters grow, and family shift. On the evening of the 27th of June, 1967, or perhaps in the small hours of the 28th, something terrible came for her. In the sanctuary of her own home, she would not wake. 2 days later, she was found dead, having been raped and strangled. It would become one of Britain's longest-running cold cases. A woman murdered in her own living room, a life taken in silence, and for decades, nobody found to pay for it. Louisa had once been Mrs. Jarrett, later Mrs. Parker, married to a city councillor, a woman of the community. She had remarried a man named John Dunne in 1952 after being widowed again, and then in 1961 she lost him too. The second widowhood turned her inward, made her home her refuge. She lived with dignity, retired, known locally, unassuming. The doorknock of a preyed-upon predator would respect none of that. The night she died, neighbors reported hearing something, a cry, a scream, muffled. On Britannia Road, the windows were shuttered, the street quiet. One neighbor later told police she heard a woman cry. She didn't think it was Louisa's house, so she stayed in bed. Another heard a loud scream, then moaning, then silence. The next morning, a sash window at Louisa's home was open, slightly. The neighbors raised the alarm. A friend climbed in, found her body. The worry was immediate, palpable. A woman alone in her home, violated and murdered. Police arrived, made their notes, took photographs. Louisa lay on the floor of her front room. The cause of death, strangulation and asphyxiation, with evidence of sexual assault. Investigators in 1967 worked with the tools of their time: fingerprint cards, palm prints, witness statements, canvas searches. They took the palm prints of 19,000 local men in the effort to match one left on the upstairs window. But no match emerged. The suspect slipped through the cracks of memory and record. Time passed. The case file grew dusty. Names once called into police rooms disappeared. Home vinyl records cracked in their grooves. The neighborhood remembered Louisa as a quiet figure, the kind of person who locks her door and reads by the lamplight. The violation of that safe space haunted all who knew. The door had been left ajar, the bedroom window slightly open, the evidence left behind. For decades, that evidence sat archived, clothes preserved, a blue skirt Louisa had been wearing that night, fibers and tissue held like bookmarks in notebooks of hope. In the years that followed, criminologists and forensic scientists would turn to 1,960 seconds cases with regret and wonder. What might have been caught if technology was better? What evidence lost? What witnesses died? Louisa's murder became a benchmark for unsolved crimes, for the pain of families left waiting. It became a memory of lost innocence, in community, in home, in a person who'd once walked free and alive. Then something shifted. In 2023, the major crime review team of Avon and Somerset Police reopened her case. They sent the preserved blue skirt and other samples for modern DNA analysis. Using techniques unavailable in 1967, they extracted a full DNA profile. They uploaded it. At the same time, they re-examined palm print databases, digital databases, genealogy matches. They searched through decades of suspect lists, convict records, behavioral patterns. They looked again at the footprints of the man who had entered Louisa's home, the marks he left behind, the memory of a window he'd touched. The breakthrough came when the DNA matched the profile of a man living in Ipswich, still alive in 2024, aged 92. His name, Ryland Headley. The profile was 1 billion times more likely to match him than any other. The palm print on the window, the semen found on the clothing, the preserved skirt all aligned. In black and white photographs, the years fell away, and the man who had walked out the window of Louisa's home was named. In late June 2025, a jury found him guilty of her rape and murder. A life sentence followed, minimum 20 years. A man who thought retirement would never bring reckoning was proved wrong. For Louisa's family, the moment of naming was both cathartic and bitter. Her daughter, her granddaughter, had spent decades asking who, why, Now they had an answer, though not in time for her. Louisa herself could not sit in court, could not watch the name emerge. But for the living, it mattered. It meant the case was no longer unsolved. The crime could no longer fade into a statistic or whisper. The community of Easton took a breath, turned a page, but the scar remained. The details of the crime are stark. Louisa lived alone. The intruder entered through a window upstairs or forced entry. He left behind a palm print. He sexually assaulted, strangled, killed, all in the place where she should have been safest. The judge described the act as pitiless and cruel, exploiting vulnerability, violating dignity. The legacy of that night transformed from lost case to resolved file, but the weight remains. What this case teaches us is layered. It teaches that time does not necessarily erase a crime. It teaches that evidence, preserved carefully, may one day speak louder than witness memories. It teaches that victims are more than names. Louisa was a wife, a mother, a survivor of wars, a matriarch. She was years of life, not just the moment death took her. Her story reminds us that homes can hold danger, and that danger often waits behind the familiar. And most importantly, it reminds us that for justice to be done, sometimes we must wait, sometimes we must believe, sometimes we must preserve until we can act. She was 21 years old, a daughter, a wife, a mother of 2 young children, living in Atlanta, Georgia. Melissa Patton, later known as Melissa Wolfenbarger, had hopes and plans for her life. But one evening, in late 1998, she vanished. For decades, her family asked, why? Where? Who did this? And the silence grew long. Her remains were found, then misidentified, then finally identified years later. But the question of who took her life and why remained locked in time. Then, in August 2024, detectives announced that her husband, Christopher Wolfenbarger, was arrested for her murder. The journey to that point is a study in patience, loss, forensic science, and the will of family who refuse to forget. On Thanksgiving Day, 1998, Melissa phoned her mother, Norma Patton, from the home she shared in Atlanta with her husband Christopher and their children. She discussed Christmas plans, perhaps the joy of the season, the gathering to come. After that, nothing. No reply to birthday cards, no holiday calls, no return to her parents' home. Her absence began as a worry, then a dread. When Christmas passed with no word, Norma's concern rose. By late February, on her birthday, her daughter still hadn't called. She traveled to Melissa's home and found it empty. Neighbors said the family had moved, but nobody knew to where. A missing persons report was filed in 2000. The investigation that followed would stretch across decades. In April 1999, a severed human skull was found in a black trash bag near a wooded area in Fulton County, Georgia. In June of that year, more dismembered human remains, hands, feet, limbs, were found in black trash bags near a glass company allied with tools that only certain men used. At first, the remains were unidentified. The victim's torso was never recovered. For years, the skull sat in a morgue waiting for a name. For Melissa's family, each news alert about an unidentified body echoed the possibility their daughter might finally be found. The remains were not confirmed to be Melissa until 2003, after DNA taken from her father, the convicted serial killer Carl Patton, led to the identification. A daughter's body found piece by piece, a family's hope found death by inches. But behind the remains lay a story bigger than what met the eye. Carl Patton had a grisly history. He was convicted in 2003 for the murders of at least 5 people in the 1,970 seconds, known as the Flint River Murders. His arrest and the DNA work that connected his crimes helped the family get Melissa's name back. But it did not answer the question of who killed Melissa. And it cast a long shadow because the victim's father was a serial killer, the husband a person of interest, and the remains cut up, hidden, severed. The complexity intensified. In the early years of investigation, detectives considered every angle. Domestic violence calls had been made to the home Melissa shared with Christopher. Neighbors reported arguments, bruising. The house across from Christopher's workplace became a crucial location. Black trash bags full of human remains were found in wooded areas across from the glass company where Christopher worked in 1999. The overlap of location, relationship, tools, and bones was not coincidence. Despite the clues, the legal engine refused to turn. No arrest, no trial. The remains identified. The victim named, but the killer free. The children, still young, grew up without a mother's presence. The family grew older, with no resolution. Mom Norma Patton waited. Sister Tina waited. People in their lives moved on, but the family couldn't. The basement of their home held archives. Binders, audio tapes, letters, notes sent to podcasts, pleas for help. "My daughter was beheaded and I need your help," Norma said at one point. She walked into a crime event wearing Bermuda shorts and a hat in infinite pain. Then came a turning point. In August 2024, the Atlanta Police Department announced the arrest of Christopher Wolfenbarger, indicted by a grand jury for the murder of his wife Melissa. He was taken into custody at his home in Griffin, Georgia, found hiding behind a dryer in the garage. The arrest did not bring the body back, nor did it return the years of absence. But it brought the charge. What changed? Investigators pointed to new forensic techniques, renewed focus by the cold case unit, and persistent family pressure. They looked at the decades-old evidence through modern lenses. The location of the remains across the street from Christopher's workplace. The tool types accessible there. The earlier forensic misidentifications, the domestic violence history, the failing story of a missing wife. The pieces that sat out of reach for years became reachable. The victim's voice returned. The suspect's name came forward. But the court case remains ongoing, and, as of current records, Christopher's guilt has yet to be finally judged. For Melissa's children, the news brought conflicting emotions. Relief that the case was advancing. Anger that it took over 25 years. Grief that their mother was gone and they would never know the final moments of her life. They were told now that they had a mother, they had a case, they had a name, but they also had the weight of the legal system moving slowly. The family's funds, their time, their lives, all spent in the investigation's shadow. This case is not just about evidence and arrests. It's about patterns. It's about the way domestic violence hides behind closed doors. It's about how a young woman's disappearance can fold into the abyss of trauma and neglect. It's about the way family, the victim's family, carried the memory for 26 years before seeing a glimmer of hope. It's about the importance of preservation, of autopsy samples, of marginal suspects, of shadowed leads. Because one discarded bag of bones obtained a name, one silent sister still spoke, one mother still asked questions,